Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Joanita and today I'll be showing you a tour of my houseplants. First up we've got the Calathea Woolcelestia. This is part of the Miranta family and it's one of the prayer plants. It is super velvety soft, hence the nickname, the jungle velvet. And I just really enjoy taking care of this one. It was much easier to learn how to care for this one more so than the other prayer plants. Another one of the prayer plants is the Sabrena, Calathea Sabrena. It's similar care to the Woolcelestia. I just make sure the soil is moist, water from the bottom, and it's just a nice one to have around as well, very striking. Continuing with the fireplace plant family is the neon Pythos, and this is one of my older plants. I think I've had it for about, I don't know, 3-4 years or so, and it started out as a cutting that one of the places I go to buy plants from gave to me for free. Back then it was so difficult to find a neon Pythos, so a sales staff just said, oh, here you go, have this one and you can propagate it. I had no idea what that was at the time. I keep it quite shortcut just because I like the look, but next to it you saw is one of its babies that one time I decided to propagate. Right beneath is the Eggnema Pink Moon. I just recently started collecting Eggnema just because they're so easy to look after and can be quite striking. I really like the pink in this plant. Pink is one of my favourite options for foliage plants. Much closer to the window, in fact just beneath the window sill now, is the Monstera deliciosa. This is just a cutting and I've put it in a glass jar of water and I've put that in a terracotta pot just to help with the stability. So behind that is the Pepperomia Hope. Again, this is one of my very old plants. I think it's possibly maybe 4 or 5 years, maybe older. And again, it just started with 4 leaves that I plumped in a pot. I keep her cut short, and as you can see, it just grows back from the cut point. So right up against the window is the Crazylovato, variegated jade plant basically. The smallest plant in my collection, but I've actually had her for, again, maybe 4 or 5 years or so. She just grows really slowly. Just beside the Peperomia is the Hoya Crimson Queen. Again, probably as old as the Hoya, and this one is about 2.5 to 3 meters long, and I keep cutting her back. But this year she finally flowered for the first time and it just keeps blooming, but I really dislike the foliage anyway. Next up is the Philodendron Birkin Congo. I've been looking for a bigger one, but I couldn't find the one I wanted, so I just smushed 2 small ones together, and it's grown about, I don't know, 6 leaves since I bought it. Next is the Kalinkowi plus veldiana, and this was a tiny cutting that I got from an office and I had no idea what it looked like. But it's since grown into such a huge plant. It's not showing off coming across on camera, but I think she's about 1 meter wide. And again, I've cut a big chunk of her off this summer because she was just getting quite heavy and leaning forward. I don't like to play favourites, but the Zamiya stamifolia or Zedd plant is one of my real favourites. I've got about 3 of them in my home at the moment, and they're just so easy to look after and so peaceful and just bringing lots of joy. I call these 2 the twins because I couldn't bear to leave one of them at the store, so they all came home with me. Dermatophyllum bipinnatophyllum, aka Philodendron saloon. Again, another one that started out small and now she's taking up a whole heap of space. I actually moved her from the other room because she's about 2 meters wide, possibly more now. Next up is the Pythos Manjula, one of my favorite Pythos. They're all my favorites really. I like how the leaves have a soft rounded heart shape to them and the variegation is really stunning to me. Again, she started out medium sized and now she's all over the carpet. To the dark room, that's what I call it, just because it's not as bright as the main room, but clearly it's not a dark room. Furthest from the window is the Stromantia Triostar, but it's elevated so it does receive some bright indirect light. Next to her is the Calathea White Star. I think it's the Geopersia White Star it's called, I'm not quite sure. This is such a lovely plant, but in the beginning we had a not so love relationship. I bought her on a whim and wasn't sure that I'd be able to keep her because then I started hearing all these like horror stories. But actually she's been quite easy to look after, relatively touch wood and everything. I just keep her in not so bright areas and water her when she's slightly drier than moist. But that's I've got a Calathea video that I'll link up if you want to see more on how I take care of my Calathea. Calathea Angela Surprise Star is the next one, and she's so easy to look after. Just water her when she needs to be and she doesn't really give me trouble. She does like the lower light though, so you can see she's right on the floor, and above her is actually another huge plant, so completely shading her from the window. I have a small collection of orchids, Philodendron orchids, and they just stay underneath the windowsill but in a spot where the light does actually reach it. Another rosy picture, this is the Calathea Angela. I keep her right underneath the windowsill, so in the spot that she's in, not a lot of light reaches it because I find her leaves are quite sensitive and burn quite easily. But I do like her colouring, and I think under different lighting conditions she does have a pink rim. Next is a wish list plant that I just found recently. It's the Kalinkowi Beharensis. It's part of the Kalinkowi family, but this one has a really furry, velvety feel, and I just really like the colouring. Tucked away in a corner, but still underneath the window, so receiving some good lighting, is the Agonia Silver Bay. Such a lovely plant. I love how she just complements any plant that she sits next to, and super easy and just brings so much peace and just life in any area. Just going back a bit, on the actual window sill ledge is the Philodendron Birkin. I put her right up against the windowsill because she really loves the light, and this room receives bright light, but it's southwest facing, more so to the east, so you don't get a lot of direct light throughout the day, and she still really loves this spot, and I think it helps to keep her variegation. Now going back, carrying on our tour, is the Scindapta Sphinx Exotica. This is such a lovely plant, and she's actually a propagation from what used to be a huge plant, but I found some mold looking stuff in her soil twice, so I decided this time to just cut some leaves and propagate, and now it's growing some new leaves. Just underneath the Scindapta Sphinx is the Miranta, lucinora, keshavina, And this is such an easy plant. It grows so much. You can see so much growth in it at the moment. And on one of the leaves, I found it has a slight variegation, and that's so cool. It just popped up recently. But aside from that, I think the plant is so lovely. I also have the red stripe Miranta, but I'm deciding if I want to keep her or not. There's nothing wrong with her. It's just sometimes, you know, when you're not so connected to a plant. So still figuring that out, but she's in my Calathea video if you want to have a look. Next up is a Zamiya stamifolia Raven, and of course I adore all Zedd plants anyway, so this is just a bonus. And similar to the other two, this one's about 3 feet tall. I like how this one shows the different stages of going from a bright green to the dark leaf all in one plant, and I just think that's amazing. Finally, we have the big mama protector of wool in this room, the Philodendron Xanadu. She really deserves a much brighter and larger spot, but until then, she'll take care of the babies in this room.